Good afternoon. You're listening to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm your host, Jasmine Urbina, here in the studio with my dad, Alex Urbina. Today we're going to be talking about loving yourself. We actually talked about this earlier this week at the SCV Women's Empowerment Workshop, which if you missed it, you really missed it because it was really great.
What'd you like most about it?
I got a lot of feedback from a lot of older women. I mean, it wasn't feedback, but it was...
Just the sharing part?
Yeah, a lot of older women sharing what they've been going through and what they've put up with in their life, and getting to decide if I want that and if I don't want that, what they got out of their life that I do want, what they got out of their life that I don't want.
And so you took some notes.
I took a lot of notes.
And you're probably going to fire those at me, which I haven't seen yet. So why don't you start with some of those?
So I wrote down a couple of questions that some of the women asked, and then your response to them that I got a lot out of. And so one of them, the one that really I've been thinking about this whole week, is someone asked about relationships. You had said that through self-love, you're ultimately going to be able to master relationships. And you kind of said that we're looking through these filters, or a series of filters, that are affecting us in our relationships and our outcomes and how we succeed or how we don't. And I really liked that idea of the filters and perception. If you want to go ahead and explain a little bit more.
Yeah, because the filters implies that what you're seeing is not really the truth. You're looking through a set of filters that might be flawed, or they might be skewed, or there might be a little bit off. But it's more like the filters that just need to be switched out. You just need to swap out the lenses that you look and perceive life through. And so if you can swap those out, then there's an opportunity for you to make some changes. There's some opportunities for you to make some growth that implies that you can actually be successful in relationships. If it's you, and you see yourself as flawed, if you're damaged goods, if you're broken, then that implies that can't be fixed, or it's very difficult or hard to be fixed. But if they're just filters that I can swap out or clean out or mend, or make some adjustments to, then I have a chance. Then there's a chance for me to be able to go and do some work, clean those filters up, so that I can see through some clear lenses and really see things for what they are, not what I'm predetermined to see because of all my past and history and all the insecurities that I bring to the party.
I really like the analogy that you used with the glasses. You're kind of saying that sometimes your glasses get dirty, you got to take them off and rub it on your shirt, and you put it back on, and all of a sudden everything's clear. And that's so true. We come up with all these self-limiting beliefs like I'm not pretty enough, or no one could ever love me, or whatever you make up, and you're seeing your whole life that way, and now you're acting that way, and now you're getting these results.
But doesn't it feel like that every time you walk away from some kind of a workshop or like this empowerment group? You walk away on a Tuesday night and you feel a little bit more clear. You got some more clarity about how to master yourself, or how amazing you are, or the power that you have, with choice, and you just get clarity every single week. And that's really what this is about. This journey of consciousness is to be seeking clarity everywhere you go, whether it's through a book, or whether it's Sunday at church, or whether it's with an empowerment group, or even on the radio show. Some people, we got listeners that are tuning in every Friday just because they're getting clarity. And so we're evolving as human beings. We're becoming more powerful through our perception.
You're right. Clarity and self-awareness, all that stuff is really important. I think the most challenging part, though, is walking away with that information and implementing it, or making that commitment, not just on that Tuesday night when you feel great, or the Friday afternoon when you're listening to us and you feel great and all this stuff, but to still feel that way on Monday, or a week later, still working with that stuff, because it's never going to go away.
All right, let me break this down a different way, and only because I'm currently having this experience. So in the last couple months, I've really been made a new commitment to my physical well-being. And so I've been committed to going to the gym and working out. I got myself a coach. And there's this whole process, this whole new world that's unfolding for me inside of the process called working out, that I could not see from outside, looking into working out. I needed to dive in. I needed to jump into the process. Once I'm in the process from within, I can see all kinds of different possibilities I couldn't see before. And so the most challenging part is for you just to show up. And I always say this on Facebook when I'm empowering people to come and join us on a Tuesday night. And it's, hey, the hardest part is just you showing up. That's it. After that part, after you show up and you get the value of what it's about and you walk away feeling great about yourself, you feel empowered, you get some clarity, then the next hardest part is to show up again and then again and again, and to continue to have some repetitions called showing up. And it's no different than people that go to the gym. It's the hardest part. If you ask anybody, it's the hardest part is actually getting in my car, turning the keys, and driving myself to the gym and walking through the doors. Once you're in there, all of a sudden something happens inside of you. There's a shift. There's a little bit of struggle psychologically, but once you cross the plane of the door and you're in there, all of a sudden you go into a new mode. So if you got clarity about what you want in life and you want to get to that level and you're clear that path is through personal development and working on yourself, if you're clear that you're the source, both positive and negative, meaning you can be getting in your own way, then there's work that you need to get done. And if you're clear about that, force yourself to go to the places where you're going to get the clarity. And inside of that clarity and in that journey, something magical is going to happen. After hearing it so many times, and I'm sure you can attest to this, how many trainings and workshops and speaking engagements that you've been of mine where you're hearing things, but all of a sudden in real time, you're actually implementing it. And then you catch yourself and go, oh, wow. You're not doing it like from a conscious place. You've heard it so many times that it just kind of becomes natural in that process. Can you identify moments for you in your life where you're actually doing it and not really realizing that you're doing it now a different way, but it's only because of the conditioning that you've been hearing for the last year or 2 years?
Yeah, especially when I look at the affirmations that I set myself up with, weekly or monthly or however long it takes to really set for me. When I first started doing this work, my first affirmations, they all had to do with judging. So accepting people that the way that they are and allowing people to have their own opinions, all that stuff. And I remember very distinctly one day, I remember this girl used to annoy me a lot in class. I remember very distinctly one day her being her, doing whatever she was doing.
She's always probably showing up the same way she's always showing up.
Nothing changed. She was exactly the same.
Well, something did change, but not in her.
Right. Nothing with her changed. And I just remember not being annoyed by her. And I remember thinking this is such a weird feeling because I genuinely do not have
You're probably going, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be annoyed by you.
Exactly.
What's going on?
I was kind of confused and I realized that, wait a second, I'm not really that annoyed with my sister anymore or my mom when she tells me to do this or that. I started realizing, and it was because of that moment, I realized that those affirmations were working when I was telling myself not to judge others or not to judge the universe or whatever was going on around me, to let people have their own opinions and do their own thing and just let things play out the way it was. I realized that I had officially become that.
That's right. And that can only happen through the process at which you've been surrounding yourself around either positive people or positive thinking or people that have been sharing. You've sat in many workshops where you've heard powerful women stand up and share some of their breakthroughs. You're learning in that. You're learning through watching others. So all of a sudden it becomes a change that's implemented in your life, almost like breathing. And then you don't realize until you one day, like you said, you caught yourself and went, oh my God, I actually am growing. Let's get back to self-love because I got some very distinctive things that I want to give people some solid stuff. When it comes to self-love, there's the very first thing that comes to my mind is that you want to decide to start a new relationship with yourself. I remember for the very first time when I started my personal development journey, somebody asked me a question about my own relationship with me. And I remember thinking to myself, I didn't even realize that I had a relationship with me. And you might be so unconscious that you don't even realize that there is a relationship that you have with yourself. It just isn't heightened. There's no heightened awareness of it. You're not really conscious that you do have one. If you're unconscious about it, you're probably having an abusive relationship with self. Like, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'll never be able to do that. Why bother starting now? I never complete stuff. Like, it's all happening subconsciously, really silently with the inner voice. So you do have a relationship with yourself. We all do. But now I want you to give yourself permission to decide to start a new conscious relationship with self. Before you try to master all these other relationships with your husbands, your wives, your boyfriends, your girlfriends, your kids, simultaneously, while you're already, because you've already engaged in those relationships, simultaneously decide to start a new one with self. And then just like all CEOs or business owners do, they create a business plan. Create a business plan for you to remind you of how you're going to choose to show up in that relationship with yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, what I actually love about that is probably a couple of months ago now, we had talked about having that you have a relationship with yourself. And I remember sitting here in the studio thinking, oh my God, I didn't even realize that. And I think I had like a little bit of an emotional experience too. I realized I have this relationship with myself. And like you said, if you don't know that you have a relationship with yourself, then it's probably an abusive one. And that's what it was. I was never really appreciating myself. It was always, why didn't you do this better or that better? And that's pretty much what my relationship has been like with myself for 20 years.
Yeah, it seems like the unconscious relationship that you're having seems to be 90% of the time abusive and not healthy. But all of a sudden, when you wake up and realize that you're going to start having a conscious relationship with yourself, then it's almost like, okay, well, if I'm going to have a conscious relationship with myself, then I probably most likely have a choice, right?
Right.
And that's where the personal power comes in, is when you realize I have a choice if I'm going to have a conscious relationship with myself to either have a negative one or a positive one. Well, come on, who's going to choose the negative one from a conscious position?
Right.
If you're conscious about having that kind of relationship with self, then you're going to most likely choose a positive one, which is going to now need a game plan. You're going to need to create some kind of a plan that which you operate from to be kind and honorable and gracious and all those great distinctions that you want to implement into that relationship. So the first thing you want to think of after you decide to start a new relationship with yourself, create a game plan. And I'm going to give you some tips and some hints of how you should start thinking. I want you to practice. And the reason why I use the word practice is because it's going to be an ongoing commitment to master. That's why I'm saying practice. It's not, you just don't get it overnight. It might be months, years, for you to develop an ability to be really good at practicing some of the things. So the first thing is practice self-awareness, practice self-reflection, right? Noticing me, noticing how and why I think, practice noticing how and why I feel what I feel, practice in noticing why I choose and where am I choosing from. Where did I choose that from? Did I choose that from love? Did I choose that from fear? Did I choose that from being protected and guarded? Or did I choose that from trusting and giving it away? You really want to be noticing everything about you. It's a constant minute by minute, moment by moment process. And people think it takes a lot of effort. It can literally be effortless. Once you start it, it's just an observation. You're just observing yourself, and that's the awakening that we call consciousness. Higher level consciousness is a heightened level of awareness. So practice the self-awareness, the reflection, the noticing of self. Next is I want you to practice improving your inner voice. And if you don't know you have an inner voice, it's a little inner voice that said to you, what inner voice is this guy talking about, right? It's that one, the one that talks to us whether you're consciously aware of it or not. If you're not aware of it, well, then it's guiding you and it's influencing you, and it's your inner coach. We all have an inner coach that we call it the inner voice, and it's always telling you or guiding you of the decisions you should be making. If you're not aware of it, then you're kind of just out there on automatic pilot in reaction to things and wondering why you're not moving forward. If you're conscious about your inner voice, then you're going to start noticing that you actually have control over it, and you could tell it what to tell you. Like you can be the person that's writing out the script, right? You're the one that's creating it. So practice improving your inner voice, like telling it what to say, what it needs to say. Hey, maybe you shouldn't say it like that. Like really be aware of that. Then I want you to practice forgiving yourself. This is key when it comes to self-love. There's a lot of things that we've done in our life, so a lot of wrongdoings that we haven't completed in our past yet. This is where we talk about sometimes we carry our past with us, and then our past sabotages the present moment. So I need you to practice this art form of forgiving yourself. And what I do a lot of times with my clients, if they're carrying a lot of baggage with them, I will actually do a couple of my one-on-ones will be dedicated to just having them forgive themselves. And so what it might look like is we lower the lights. We put on a playlist of music from their iPod, of music that could evoke some emotion, take them back to some of those experiences. And then I have them write a forgiveness letter. And the first forgiveness letter I have them write is to who?
Themselves.
I have it write them to themselves so that they can forgive themselves for all the times that they didn't stand up for themselves, for all the times that they abuse themselves verbally, mentally, emotionally. Hopefully they're not doing it physically, but if they have done it in the past physically, forgive themselves for some of those things. So forgiveness is key when it comes to self-love. If you're trying to move forward and develop self-love for yourself and get to another level without the forgiveness part or surrendering the past, you're going to struggle. This is very key when it comes down as one of the main components is practice forgiving yourself so that you can complete your past, you can let it go. And in my book, there's a segment all about completing your past, and the main key thing is about forgiveness. It's very powerful. And I know it sounds corny to some people if you've never done it before or weird, but you'll realize once you're in that process, as you're writing, and if you kind of let some emotions come out, it's such a cathartic and healing process. It's a gift that you can give yourself if you give yourself permission to do that. The next thing is to practice accepting everything about you. You're going to have to practice this. That's why I use the word practice, because it's not going to come, very easy. It's going to be challenging. But practice loving and accepting everything about you, my body, my image, my thoughts, all of my shortcomings, everything where I fall short, all the times that when I make mistakes, I get to accept that that's what the choices I made. It was the best decision I can make at that time, and I get to accept that it happened. You and I, when we are in workshops, a lot of times you've probably heard me say resisting control, right? Mm-hmm. You've heard that distinction. Freedom is when you can stop resisting trying to be in control of things, right?
Right.
Well, that's the opposite of resisting control is the acceptance. Just accept that you made the mistakes. Accept that you have a big nose. Accept that this is the body that you were given. Accept that this is the family that you were born in. You have to start learning through this, practicing the art form of accepting things is when it'll start to free you up and to heal yourself and not be so harsh and critical and judgmental on yourself. So the power of accepting everything about you, I think, is very important and powerful.
I think too, once you kind of, I don't know about master, but once you practice accepting a little bit more, the forgiving will be a lot easier.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. They all kind of intertwine with each other. And then we'll get to the last one before we go on the break. It's practicing the approval of all of your mistakes, your failures, your fears, doubts, and all the other insecurities that you've allowed yourself to have. And I know that's kind of, tough to wrap your mind around. You're like, what do you mean by approval? You have to practice saying, I authored that. I chose that. And so I give it my approval, and it was okay for me to do that because it was part of your journey. You need to realize that all those mistakes and failures is part of the journey. And you need to sign off on it and say, you know what, I approve it. It happened. I accept it. And so the whole mechanism here is to go to the opposite of resisting that all those things happened. So the acceptance and the approval is kind of like you're surrendering it, saying it's done, it's over, we can't change it. It's already completed. We authored it and we've done it. So I authorize it, meaning I signed off on it and I approve it so that I can let it go.
I like, before we go real quick, I just wanted to say I really like that you're talking about resistance, because when you get stuck in that resistance, it's that feeling of being stuck, that icky, like you want to, you don't know what to do kind of feeling. And once you just let it go, imagine not being in that place anymore. Swimming around.
That's where freedom is born. When you can finally accept and author and approve that I did that, it's done. There's nothing else you can do about it. There's no greater feeling than being stuck on something like, I can't believe this, and we're supposed to be having a good time, and I can't believe this is happening. And a friend comes over and taps you and goes, "Hey, dude, let it go. Like it's over with. Let's enjoy ourselves." And you just kind of in that moment go, "Yeah, why am I doing this?" What he's basically telling you is accept it and give it its approval so that you can surrender it and then be in the new moment of enjoying yourself or moving forward onto what's next.
Exactly. Sounds great. We'll get back to more after the break. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.